Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We are GEM, and today we will be discussing sex education and consent training for 21st century college students. Next will be speaking is Bobby.
Hi guys, so I'm going to talk about our group, the mission statement. So our group GEM is dedicated to the mission statement of educating college students on sexual health and wellness, especially on sexual consent, by breaking down stigma surrounding sex education, wellness, and consent. We believe that college students will be more knowledgeable, safe, and confident. So let's turn to our team. So I say I'm Bobby, and I'm accounting and finance major senior student. So, and this issue I think is very important to me because then for the international student, we have a responsibility or sent to learn the sexual education in different aspects, including the different body language for sexual consent in order to avoid the cultural misunderstanding or even the cultural conflict when doing sexual activity in the couple who has a different cultural background.
My name is Sade Odukogbe. I'm a critical diversity studies major and a senior.
My name is Enyolli Martinez. I'm a sociology and critical diversity studies major.
My name is Cassie Murphy, and I'm an international studies senior. And then I'll be talking today a little bit about the problem that our team is trying to address in terms of sexual education. So the first is mismatched starting points. So something that we really struggle with at our university specifically and at universities more generally is that people come in with different experiences, both with their sexuality itself, as well as with sexual education and wellness training. So that's something that we need to address. Additionally, a lot of universities will provide consent education at the beginning of students' time at a university, but not continue that throughout their time at the institution. And then lastly, a lot of sexual education isn't inclusive of LGBTQIA folks, as well as international students and other groups that aren't adequately represented in those talks. And then next up, we'll be hearing from Enyolli.
Yeah, thank you. So the facts, some of them are 11.2% of number of students who experience rape and sexual violence through physical force among undergraduate and graduate students. The number of female students victims who report their sexual assault to law enforcement is about 20%. 21% of the number of transgender, queer, and non-conforming folks who have been sexually assaulted is a large number as well. And there's 32% of the number of students, non-student female identifying survivors who report their assault to law enforcement, which is in comparison to 18% of non-transgender, queer, and non-conforming females, and 4% of non-transgender, queer, and non-conforming males as well. So that's a very common understanding, is that consent are often very limited, as well as it encompasses a lot of different ways and at times really needs to be discussed. Along with this is that this survey, we have to really take it with a grain of salt as well, because even though it tries to encompass all these different situations and experiences, a lot of times people are not comfortable enough to discuss it. So now we'll be discussing the 3-step approach.
As standpoint, in order to solve that issue for sexual, our group created a 3-step approach, which include the target engagement, guest speaker, and the sexual health and wellness course. Now let's turn to Cassie to explain more detail about this 3-step approach.
So I'll be talking specifically about year one, which is our targeted engagement phase. So this is intended to reach new college students in the ways that they're already congregating. So this involves the use of things like newsletters with really engaging graphics and articles and sections, as well as social media. And so I provided on this slide a few examples of what that might look like as a way of getting people to talk about consent and to talk about sexual wellness in a way that isn't as stuffy and formal. I'll now turn to Sade.
So in the second year of our project plan, we propose to both invite and employ sex educators as guest speakers to not only speak with the USF community, similar to how we host other guest speakers on campus, but to also help inform health promotion services and other key figures involved with providing the online trainings to students. These training services, although not directly created by USF, should be informed by intersectional and culturally competent sex educators such as Erica Hart and Julia Feldman. For instance, Julia Feldman, who can be seen on the right, is a sex education consultant based in Oakland. And her goal, among many others, is presenting a new narrative where consent and communication are expected and modeled, and where access to information guides healthy decision making, also helping to decrease stigma and shame that is attached to these topics. She also runs an approachable and informative Instagram page called Giving the Talk about sexual consent and sex positivity. That page was also quite influential to our thinkings behind how to conduct targeted engagement, as Cassie spoke about before. The second person that I have on the slide is Erica Hart, who is an activist and sex educator, providing workshops ranging from sexual assault awareness and prevention to social justice and intersectionality, even to decolonizing health and radical sex positivity. She is committed to empowering students to make a difference in the world and with each other, opening up discourse that connects sexual health and wellness to the systemic issues at the root of social injustices. She's also helped over 20 colleges and universities across the country to discover what steps they can take to confront those issues. So people like Erica Hart and Julia Feldman, whose missions are strongly aligned with that of USF's, could really help inspire the students to, or help inspire to the students to, and provide more insight. On the next slide, in the third year, we propose that USF implements a mandatory sex education class as part of the undergraduate core requirements. Just as community engaged learning and cultural diversity courses are required, students should be required to take a sexual health and wellness course so that whenever they leave USF, they have a good understanding of how to be a good sexual partner and open dialogue with their partners, friends, community about sexual health and consent. We said that if K-12 sex education was effective, then we wouldn't have such high statistics of sexual assault and sexual harassment in college. So clearly those lessons need to be continued in higher education. I think the main purpose of this class would be to get students more comfortable discussing sex and sexuality. And in that way, it doesn't have to necessarily function as a traditional class setting, rather one in which students have a safe space to ask questions, get advice, answers, discuss topics with their peers. And yes, the last slide, we would like to give special thanks to Bob and Jen McGrath, Lester Deans, Rich Dillon, Bob Jess, and all of the guest speakers that came and provided us insight. And yes, if you have any questions or want to see any of the resources that we use to inform our topics, you can use your phone to scan this QR code and it will link you to a document with all of our sources. Thank you so much for being here with us today.